All right, today we're tackling a pretty wild theory from a book by historian Ioan Ratiu called The Milner Fabian Conspiracy. So, what's so wild about it? Well, it claims there was a secret alliance between, get this, super powerful capitalists and, on the other side, socialist thinkers. I mean, these are two groups you'd expect to be at each other's throats, right? The book, drawing on research from scholars like Carol Quigley, makes the case that this strange partnership was secretly pulling the strings, shaping the world as we know it. So let's dig in and see what this is all about.
To really wrap your head around just how big this theory is, you have to start with this quote. The book says, "This was the endgame." I mean, just think about that. A world system of financial control in private hands. We're not talking about a government or some empire. We're talking about a private group of financiers aiming to dominate, well, everything. The politics of every single country and the entire world economy. It's an absolutely massive ambition. And according to the source, it's the key to understanding everything that follows. Okay, so what exactly is this Milner Fabian conspiracy? At its core, the book describes it as this hidden team-up. On one side, you've got these British socialist intellectuals who want a collectivist world. And on the other, some of the most powerful international bankers on the planet. The central idea, the main claim of the book, is that these two groups, who look like total opposites, were actually playing for the same team, aiming for the exact same long-term goal. So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the core idea of this covert alliance. Then, we'll meet the two main groups themselves. After that, we'll dive into their main strategy, something called permeation. Then we'll see how the book says they went about forging a whole new global order. And finally, we'll get to the supposed endgame, a world state. Okay, let's get into it. Part 1, the covert alliance. This is really the heart of the book's entire argument. So the fundamental idea here, according to the source, is that the biggest events of the 20th century didn't just happen. You know, things like the World Wars, the Great Depression, the creation of all these international groups. The book argues they weren't random at all. Instead, it claims they were guided, or at least heavily influenced, by a hidden network. And this network was a team-up of socialist planners and, you guessed it, the wealthiest financiers in the world. All right, so if there's a grand plan, who was behind it? Well, the book zeroes in on two very, very different groups as the masterminds. And this is where it gets really fascinating, because you can see just how different these two groups supposedly were. Over here, we have the Fabian Society. These are the intellectuals, the academics, pushing for gradual socialism. Their whole method is permeation, basically working from the inside out. And their symbol? A wolf in sheep's clothing. Kind of tells you everything, right? Then on the other side, you've got the Milner Group. These are the money guys, the imperialists, working through secret societies and elite networks, pushing for Anglo-American supremacy. The bombshell claim in the book is that even though they look like they're on opposite teams, they were secretly working towards the very same goal.
So let's zoom in on the Fabian Society. They pop up in Britain in the late 1800s, and we're talking about some serious brainpower here. People like Sidney and Beatrice Webb, George Bernard Shaw. But here's the thing, they weren't about violent revolution. No, their big idea was gradualism. The plan was to slowly, quietly infiltrate all the important places, government, universities, business, and just nudge everything towards socialism over time. It's like boiling a frog, right? The change is so slow you don't even realize it's happening until it's done.
Now, the Milner Group, as the book tells it, was a totally different animal. This thing supposedly starts as a secret society founded by the famous imperialist Cecil Rhodes. And the key players? We're talking Alfred Milner, Nathan Rothschild. I mean, these are huge names. And the money behind them? Just look at this list. The Rhodes Trust, the Astors, banks like Lazard and J.P. Morgan. This is the absolute peak of international finance. Their alleged goal? To create a unified, English-speaking world all controlled by this financial elite.
Okay, so how did they supposedly pull all this off? What was the game plan? Well, the book really focuses on this one core strategy, especially for the Fabians, and it's called permeation.
And permeation is a long game, a really long game. It's not about winning one election. It's a strategy that spans generations. You can see the steps right here. First, you get your people inside the key institutions. Step 2, they quietly start to influence policy from the inside. Step 3 is brilliant. You set up your own training centers, think universities or schools, to create a whole new generation of leaders who think just like you. And finally, step 4, you get those people you trained into positions of power to continue the cycle. It's a self-perpetuating machine. And if you want a perfect example of this in action, the book points straight to the London School of Economics, the LSE. It says the LSE was founded by top Fabians. But here's the kicker. The book claims it also got funding from powerful financiers, like the Rothschilds. In fact, it says Nathan Rothschild was the LSC's third president. Think about that for a second. Socialist intellectuals and one of the world's biggest bankers coming together to build the same institution. That's the alleged conspiracy in a nutshell. And the book presents this quote, supposedly from Beatrice Webb's own diary, as a kind of smoking gun. She's talking about getting the LSE recognized as part of the University of London, and she calls it a coup achieved by trickery. The author uses this to show that this wasn't an accident. Infiltration wasn't just something that happened. It was a deliberate strategy they were actually proud of. So, we've got the players and we've got the playbook. But what did they actually build? According to the source, this network didn't just sit around talking about ideas. No, they went out and started building the actual architecture of our modern world. Just look at this timeline. It's like a highlight reel of global institutions. It starts after World War I with the League of Nations. Right after that, you get these super influential think tanks. Chatham House in Britain, the Council on Foreign Relations, or CFR, in the US. Then World War II ends, and boom, the United Nations and the IMF are born, and a bit later, the beginnings of what would become the European Union. Now, the book's argument is that these aren't just separate, unrelated historical events. It claims they're all connected, all steps in a much bigger plan. And this table really spells out the connections the book is making. It says Chatham House, a direct creation of the Milner Group, the CFR in America, basically its sister organization, set up by the same crowd, the League of Nations and the UN. The book claims the drafts were written and promoted by members of the Milner Group and the CFR. It even connects the early push for United Europe back to these same Milnerite circles. It's all presented as one big interconnected web. Okay, so this brings us to the biggest, most dramatic part of the entire theory. What was this all for? What was the ultimate point? The endgame? The conclusion the book comes to is, frankly, stunning. It argues that every one of these organizations, the UN, the IMF, the EU, they were all designed with one goal in mind: to slowly chip away at the power of individual nations, to erode national sovereignty, and to transfer that power to a single, centralized world government. Every institution was just another brick in the wall. And to back this up, the author points to things like this: a public declaration from the Socialist International in 1962. Now, the book connects this group directly to Fabian influence, and look what it says their ultimate objective is: nothing less than world government. For the author, this isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a stated goal out in the open for anyone to see. And this is where it all comes together. The book's final argument connects those two groups we started with, the socialists and the financiers. The endgame, it says, is a kind of world socialism. But what does that mean? Well, it would be a world government, but one that isn't run by people you elect. It's run by a class of unelected experts and technocrats. And who's really in charge? According to the book, it's the same private financial powers that helped build the system from the start. So there you have it. That's the core theory from the Milner Fabian conspiracy, a century-long project by an unlikely alliance to build a new world order. Now, whether you buy into this specific theory or not, it definitely leaves you with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it? A question that feels very relevant today. Just how much influence do unelected networks and private financial interests have on the direction our world is headed?